Hi, thank you for coming. Thank you for the time. Today is basically a sharing session. I put together a basically communication model, and the origin intent of this sharing session is really the communication behind how I can improve my communication with my parents, siblings, and children and friends. When I shared this communication model with my friends, they thought that more people could have benefited from it, and that's why they're asking me to put this video together. With the help of Tampines Junior College, thank you for the resource to put this video together to benefit more people. Now, communication, the end result we're talking about is really being happy about it, being happy in how we communicate. The end result is delivering the message across. I'm actually using Chinese character with 5,000 years of history behind to kind of showcase the importance and the depth in terms of our communication. So if you allow me, please focus yourself on the board. I'm going to show you. End result of communication being happy is this Chinese word called kaixin. Kaixin inside is wealth, a gateway to the wealth of communication. So this is today's topic of what I'm sharing with you. Now in communication, we start with the heart. The heart is actually, we talking about is really the mind. People ask what is in your mind, so it's really what we're talking about. When you have two entities communicating, these two circles represent the two entities we're talking about. On the left is basically yourself, which is red, with a covering of yourself. Most people cover their emotions, and when we communicate, how do we communicate with this state of mind? So this is your inner self. How do we communicate that to an individual, which is this Chinese word called ge? It has a story inside four walls, and each individual has its own story. This is individual. Now in communication, how do we engage in that combination between ourselves, we have the inner covering, and a person with story? In my study, I realized that one very important word is this word called Chen. The word Chen comes from two parts. Success to our five senses in communication. So Chen is sincerity, sincere. Being sincere, Chen Xin is what we are talking about in communication. Now, the five senses, you probably know in Chinese character, the first word is Ting. This is listen. Okay. The second word is si. This is basically vision. The third word we are talking about is wei, which is basically our taste. And then you have xiu. This is basically the smell. And the lastly is done. This is basically our feel. So basically these five words represent the five senses that's revolving around our heart. And it's through these five senses that delivers the communication in the package to the other party. So it's very important we understand these five basically so-called senses. Now, besides being sincere, we also need to be real, genuine. This word called zhen. Being real, being open, being direct about things, and also being tong, which is basically sharing. Tong is a very important word in starting a conversation, in engaging a conversation. You must have the same commonalities. You're going through the same door, common interests, and sharing empathy with the other party to initiate a communication. One very important word in communication is really about this word called I. I is meaning love, and here I'm referring to the love of giving. This word is easy to write, but not easy to achieve, because giving love, giving your best pen that you love so much to somebody unconditionally is not easy to be done. So it's gift of love. And the last thing we're talking about that is within your control is basically this word called sin. Sin comes from the word human with 5 senses. The success of communication ultimately is through your confidence and in return the trust that you're getting from the other party. So it's confidence and trust. So on the left side is basically the kind of communication that is within your controls, the values that you within yourself, and the kind of things that you are projecting across. When you have love giving, you have someone who would receive love. This is receiving of love. Love can be received in many forms. Different people has different way of receiving love. So in terms of receiving love, if you Google Gary Chapman, the 5 languages of love, you'll find that different forms of love people receive differently. Just example, our parents, when we give money to our parents, they may not feel love. But when you spend time doing household chores, and when you spend time with them, quality time with them, they may feel love. Example, our children, when you give them an iPhone, for the moment they may feel love, but down the road, this thing disappears. Why? Because to them, love may mean spending quality time with them. So different people has different form of receiving of love. Now the important question, how you know what kind of love you need, what kind of love you probably be more preferred. Ask a simple question. What makes you happy? How would you be happy? So this kind of simple question you ask, you will end up knowing what kind of love they would prefer. Okay. When you receive love, you will receive this thing called an, which is basically a Chinese word called, which is under secure. An is a word where it takes a woman with a shelter on top, meaning that they are secure. And for children, imagine you bring a child to the seaside and going into the water. You can feel the children clinging onto you, and that is talking about unsecure. Un to a teenager is not so much of secure. It's basically the word called liang. Liangji, which is basically understanding. You understand him, you forgive him, you give him space, you help him to basically see things, and that is what I mean by liang. After your folks receive secure, what essentially you do is that you have removed this word from him or her, and this word is called worry, chao xin. Chao word have 3 mouths sitting on the bench. A person repeating the same thing on the bench, and the way to go about is just tell him, I'm taking care of things, don't worry, go be happy. In the children's side, what essentially, once you understand them, you recognize them, you give them space, what essentially you deliver to them is this word called en. En meaning big heart. Let's give you an example of what it means by earn, which is basically gratitude. Example is, back when I was younger, my grandma took me to school. She sat at the canteen the whole day at school, waiting for me to come out. So she could have taken the time to do something else, but instead she chose to sit at the canteen with the whole day. I felt so-called benefited from it, and I value it. And today I feel gratitude for the action my grandma did. So this is really gratitude. Now, ultimately for our old folks, when they reach certain age, they may not say it, but ultimately they are looking at this word called xiao, which is basically old folks with children underneath, children supporting them. What your siblings, your older generation people are looking for is that you are looking after them. So it's called filial piety. To a child, a teenager, it's not so much of a filial piety, but they want someone who can help them, who can basically being a mentor, and this is called Dao Shi, and this is called mentor. Mentor is very different from being a teacher. Mentor is basically the guiding principle behind you give to the children, for life. Whereas teaching is more on a shorter, narrower scope. With all this, what you have taught children to be is being Hao. Hao comes from the word a male and a female together in unison, in harmony. And essentially what you are teaching them is doing well by doing good. So in a nutshell, if we communicate in this way, we will build up a set of values and beliefs, and ultimately this forms the soul of a person. For a company, it literally forms, the 灵魂 of the company in the organization. So ultimately, this is what I mean by the wealth in communication. Thank you for your time. Thank you.